I'm your host, Carolyn Solo, LCSW, EMDR therapist, and mom of 3 daughters. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 122 of the Future Template Parent Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Carolyn Solo, PhD, LCSW, EMDR therapist, mom of 3 daughters, and coach for EMDR Intensive therapists. Halloween is over here, and it is starting to feel like winter is coming, which if you know me, you know I'm excited about that up here in ski country. There's snow on the trails already. I've seen some pictures of some intrepid explorers skiing down the mountain already, even though it is many weeks till it's going to be open. But it's exciting for me to be living this change of seasons again up here. So I hope you're all staying warm, feeling cozy, that this change of seasons, however it hits you, is proceeding gently for you. Speaking of transitioning, today I want to talk about the process, a part of the process about moving to an intensives focused practice that can feel really challenging for therapists. And that's really the transitioning of clients whom they already have, and then creating a practice schedule and structure that makes space for intensives, but doesn't, overfill your practice, and that doesn't compromise your consistent weekly client income. So these themes and concerns have been coming up a lot in my current iteration of my group program, the EMDR Intensive 12-week intensive. So I thought I could talk a bit about what I think can be the trickiest sticking points for people in this process and how to move past them. So first, I work with a lot of therapists who are fearful that, if they don't want to go all in on just, the 3-day intensive like I teach, can they do that? Can they keep some of their regular clients? And what about those clients who, quote, need, weekly therapy? And some do, not quote facetiously, but, I think there aren't as many of those clients as we might think there are, but there certainly are some. But so this is a common question I get from people who are interested in working with me, either in group or one-to-one coaching. They'll say, but I love my hourly clients. Do I need to only offer intensives, or can I keep some of my weekly clients? To which I say, of course you can. You can do whatever you want, but you should do whatever you want. But I think it's important to focus on why you're asking this question, right? Why are you asking, can I keep seeing some of my weekly clients? Do you want to be seeing clients weekly? Or do you feel like you should keep seeing clients weekly? Like the good little therapist that you were taught to be in school, right? The 45-minute, 50-minute session weekly therapist that insurance companies have told us we need to be. Is that why? Or is it because you truly value that ongoing relationship, which of course makes sense, and you don't want to give that up entirely? That's real too. And you can keep ongoing clients without having a weekly session model, right? I have a few clients I see every other week or once a month for longer sessions, 2 to 3 hours. And then I have 3-day intensive clients making up the rest of my schedule. And that works for me. I get to have those ongoing relationships with a few clients. Because the sessions are longer, I get the clinical outcomes that make me feel good. Because I'm not seeing them weekly, it gives me time freedom. I have the income I want because I charge more for the longer sessions than I would for a 50-minute session. And I still have that time freedom, right? So that is an option too. It's not, I'm only seeing 20, 25 clients a week for 50 minutes, or I'm doing 3 15-hour intensives. Those aren't the two options. You can go somewhere in between. And if you're seeing, a few ongoing clients less frequently, but for longer, and you're charging more for those longer sessions, you can make up for some of that income you might not be getting when you're discharging some ongoing clients. And of course, there are clients who really do need a weekly therapist, who need someone to be checking in with them weekly, to be connecting with them weekly. That's real, of course. I'm not trying to convince anyone that is not real. But my question for you is, do you want to be that therapist? What's your why for wanting to move towards intensives? Are you burned out? If you're listening to this podcast, my guess is at least to some degree you are. And you are recognizing the need to make changes in your practice. And remember, you can and should and get to design the kind of practice that you want and that you need to have. And that's going to look different from what every single potential client will need and want. You're never going to serve every client, no matter what. Like all the ways we can't be all things to all people, right? Our niche isn't going to be serving all people. The modality we choose, not everyone's going to want to do EMDR, right? The fee we charge, being private pay means we're already excluding a lot of people from the jump, right? We don't take insurance, right? So already you're cutting out a huge swath of people. So yes, you cannot serve everyone, right? And there are going to be some clients who might not be happy with the fact that they can't see you as a weekly therapist. That's okay. They're allowed to feel that way, and you're allowed to make the choice that you want to make, right? Some of them might decide that the change you're making in your practice makes you no longer a fit. You're not a fit for them. They're not a fit for you. That's okay. That happens. Our businesses change. Our client bases change. We're not, expected to, nor should we have the same clients for our entire lives, right? I think the scarcity mindset is real, and we get scared when we, put out this new model and people say, no, I don't want that. That's scary, right? And so we can start backing up and saying, oh, well, actually, I can take you as a weekly client. Don't worry about it. But I will say that as much as people fear that response, I think you get fewer of those responses than you might expect. Like someone who's currently in my group program has decided and has announced to all of her current clients that as of January 1st, she's only doing, longer sessions, less frequently, or multi-day intensives. And in her own words, like 95% of her clients responded really positively. A couple clients were upset. And of course, those were the ones that she felt, that we had to process as a group, which was totally fine. That's the point of the group, having a place for that. And of course, she knew that this was really not about her. It was about some other things that the client had going on. And the client wasn't even that reliable anyway and hadn't booked in 3 months and all this stuff. So it was clear that this client wasn't a fit for a number of other reasons. But, she said a couple things that were a little hurtful. And so, yeah, my therapist client had to move through those feelings, and she did. And most of her clients are cheering her on and have a couple are doing multi-day intensives with her. So, the change is working more than it's not. But I think that fear of like, what if my weekly clients are upset about this? And what if I really want to have weekly clients? Those two fears are both worth interrogating, because they're not necessarily just about, I still want to have weekly clients. I think there's more fear about the responses you're going to get and if it's possible to move to a different model, right? And creating a structure of your practice that works for you, given that you are likely already burned out, is going to mean getting rid of some of the weekly clients you have now. It's just going to mean that you're going to have to do that to make space for offering intensives. And is the fear of getting pushback and is the fear of having to terminate with some clients part of what's keeping you from doing this? Because that fear is not about what's best for you. It's not about what's best for your life. It's not even what's best for your clients, right? Change is hard. That's what it is. Change is hard. It's bumpy, and it takes us dealing with some uncomfortable feelings and doing the thing anyway. But I hear from so many therapists that they're teetering on the edge of burnout and can't keep working in the way that they are. So when those same therapists come to me and want to offer intensives, I want them to do the hard work to create the practice that actually serves them. And it's hard, and that's why we work together on it, right? Something else I see is the fear of raising your rate for an intensive hour versus for a 50-minute session. So certainly, especially with like current clients, right? You're going to start moving to an intensives practice, and your current clients are used to paying a $200 an hour session fee. And now you're telling them that your session fee is $350 or whatever, like, an intensive hour is $350 an hour, right? I think a lot of therapists start from the assumption that if a 50-minute session is, say, $200, their intensive rate should be $200 an hour as well. Well, I disagree. In fact, I charge $6,000 for my intensives, which divides out to about $375 an hour. And obviously that's a lot more than my 50-minute session rate of 225. So how do I quote justify this? Well, from a purely math perspective, an hour is 60 minutes, not 50. So you're already getting an extra 10 minutes per hour there. That needs to be included into the price. If I'm doing a multi-hour intensive with someone, or 16-hour intensive with, 6,000, it is 16 hours intensive over the course of 3 days with someone, I'm setting aside my entire week for that person so I can show up as the best version of my therapist self. So yeah, that means I'm not seeing other people on those intervening days. That means I am putting in a lot of effort into staying rested and showing up as the best version of me. That costs money. And that's something that they're paying for, right? Each hour is worth at least 2 regular session hours, I say. Certainly, I think even more than that with 2 50-minute sessions, because you're not closing down. You're not opening up and closing down. You're not doing the problem of the week stuff. You're getting deeply into processing and staying there. You're really getting to the good stuff, which can be hard to get to in a short time. So the bang for the buck is huge. You get so much more done in an hour of an intensive than you do in a single weekly session. I often say, and I think it's true, 6 months of progress in 1 week, maybe even more like a year. So yeah, you're going to pay more for that because the ripple effects in the client's life are huge with that kind of change in that amount of time. I'm also charging more because of the training that I have to do to be an excellent intensive therapist. The expertise that I've developed, right? This is not a model that everybody offers. So I've done a lot of work to make sure that I am providing a service that is really excellent. And so I want to charge accordingly. I know how much it takes out of me to be that attuned and present, and I'm willing to do it because I think it's what gets clients the best outcomes. And I actually find it really satisfying to see those incredible outcomes, but it's tiring. So yes, I'm going to charge for my energy expenditure. For some of you, you might have not been renting office space before you started doing intensives because you just were doing clients virtually from your home. You're going to have to start paying for that. That's not free. There's extras that go along with intensives. I have little various kinds of snacks, and sometimes I give out fidgets and essential oils and a little care package. And I want the office to be really cozy and inviting. And so I've done a lot, put money into making the space really nice. That all goes into the cost of it. I'm not apologizing for how much more my intensive hour costs than a 50-minute session. I think you're getting what you pay for. It's the, Disney Fast Pass or whatever they call it now, Lightning Lane. I don't remember. I went to Disney World a few years ago. You're getting therapy accelerated, right? And so you should be getting there's a cost to that, as there should be, right? If you mention some of this briefly to a client, they tend to get it. Right? This is usually your own stuff as a therapist that's getting in the way here about the fees. It's not really the clients being like, how dare you charge more for this? They intuitively understand. If you don't trip over your words and start blabbing on and on about why it's worth it, you just give a couple of, good solid sentences about why it costs more, they tend to get it. And if they don't, they're probably not right for it anyway, or they don't want it right now, or it's not a fit for them now. It's not for everyone. You're not offering it to everyone. It's not going to be something that everyone can access, and that's okay. It's a boutique service, a high ticket service, a luxury service even. All those words are kind of icky, I know, when we talk about therapy, but that is what we're offering. So it's not going to be for everyone. We're not trying to make it accessible for everyone. And I'll just say, if you offer a bunch of high ticket intensives and you're doing really well, that might mean that you can give back in other ways. Okay, because I know all of us therapists worry that we're not contributing enough, that we're not being accessible enough. If you're financially secure in your practice and you have time freedom and you have some energy left over, you actually can meaningfully give back in a variety of ways. So that argument does not work for me anymore. It hasn't for a long time, that we should be accessible. I don't think that individual therapists should be bearing the responsibility for making therapy accessible. That's not, at our own expense. So yeah, definitely an hour of an intensive is worth a lot more than a single 50-minute session. The last thing I'll talk about a little bit is this fear of losing consistent income. if you go all in with intensives, right? Like it feels really hard to give up that consistent or guaranteed income of weekly sessions. If you have 20 clients that you see every week, right? And that's very consistent and predictable. And then you're going all in on creating a model where a client comes in, pays several $1,000s, and then it's gone again, right? When you get a new weekly client, likely you can hope to get like 6 months, maybe a year of appointments out of them, often more, right? And that feels comfortable and safe, right? But this consistency can keep us stuck and fearful of change. So what I do when I'm working with my coaching clients is I come up with individualized plans for all of them on how to transition their practices to this new model. What's the timeline that they're going to do it on? How are they going to talk to clients about it? Which clients are they going to offer a multi-day intensive to? Which clients are they going to offer, ongoing but less frequent but longer sessions? Which clients are they going to terminate? We come up with a plan for each of them and a timeline for when the therapists are going to talk to the clients about this. So I'm working with my coaching clients on how to transition their practices and inform their clients about the changes so that it kind of pads the transition for the clients and for the therapist. Because of course, it's not ethical to drop a client, right? If you give them 2 or 3 months of lead time into practice changes, that's very ethical and sufficient. And of course, if they decide they don't want to continue, you provide them with appropriate referrals and you're doing your ethical due diligence, right? And the client of the therapist that I was working with, who got really upset, the therapist did all those things and the client was upset anyway. The client was going to be upset. They wanted things on their terms in a way that suited them. And, it didn't work for them that the therapist was saying, I'm changing things for me. So that's that client's prerogative to feel that way. And also the therapist is allowed to say, I hear you. I know this is hard and this is what I'm doing. It's very unusual to make a big change and not have anyone be upset by it, even a little bit, right? That's kind of a fantasy. So this is just part of the process. I will say that most of the therapists I work with that I coach offer a range of intensives when as they're transitioning their practices, like as the practice structure they transition to, like ranging from like half a day to 3 days. The half days are often for ongoing clients. So they keep some of their clients, but see them less frequently, but at a higher rate. And that can also help financially with the transition, right? You're still, you're increasing the amount you're making, you're decreasing the amount of time, you're decreasing the amount of the weekly caseload, all that, while you're still keep making sure your income is at a level that feels good. And you're also creating enough white space in your calendar for multi-day intensives, which you need to do if you want to move towards that model. You can't just keep all the clients you have and then just add on intensives on top of that. That's not going to help with your burnout at all. So this takes thoughtful planning, but it's doable. And again, this is something that I work with all my coaching clients on. It's a big thing that might feel, how to move from the practice you have to the practice you want is actually a multi-step process that does take a lot of thought. So something that I make sure we focus on a lot in the program. And also a huge piece of the puzzle when you're trying to move towards an intensive focused practice is the up-leveling of your marketing, right? Yeah, of course you're fearing losing consistent income. That's why you up the marketing ante so that this is not something that you're not blowing your business up, right? You need to be marketing much more consistently and planfully and assertively to continue bringing in intensive clients. That is not impossible, but it takes time and commitment, and it takes an ongoing commitment. It's not something you do for 3 months and then never have to do again. We were talking about that in the group this morning, that I'm always talking about intensives. I met someone at a birthday party yesterday and I talked about it. I know I promise it was not completely out of the blue, but it's not something that I ever give up on doing because I know I need to be constantly nurturing the referral relationships I have already and creating new ones to keep getting that influx of intensive clients that I need to keep my practice buoyant and to be getting the income that I need. So I work with therapists who are struggling with the transition to intensives. not struggling, who want to transition to intensives and need support because there is, struggle involved. I guess that's what I should say. And I work with them in both group and one-to-one coaching packages. And we work on all of this, right? Fee setting for intensives, changing your practice structure to make space for intensives, figuring out what to do with your current caseload as you transition. If you're hearing this and thinking, I could use this kind of support, my group program is going to launch again in late January. You'll be able to get on the wait list for the January cohort starting in December. And I'll let you know when that happens. If you want to get on the wait, if you want me to inform you as soon as the wait list opens up, just send me a message at Future Template Parent. You can DM me or you can send me an email. Also, feel free to ask any questions about the program. And either of those, any way you want to, just reach out to me. Thank you for listening. I hope this was helpful. And I hope you're all staying warm, those of you who are in cold areas like me, and are starting to move forward in the seasonal transition with some, with some plans to care for yourself as some of these dark days come upon us. And they don't have to, I like winter. I like the contemplative, intentional slowdown. But I know it can be a hard time for people. So just thinking of you all as we move through November. So thank you for listening. And I look forward to talking to you all again next week. Take care, everyone.